defendants, and the defendants are present as well as our counsel. State, you may call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Jay Stewart.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of law the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated.
Mr. Stewart, we've called you here because you were an APD forensic firearms examiner who did some work in this case. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do, please?
My name is Jay Stewart, S-T-U-A-R-T, and I am a forensic firearm and tool mark examiner for the Albuquerque Police Department.
And how long have you been doing that?
Approximately 9.5 years.
What kind of training, education, or experience do you have that qualifies you to do that kind of work?
I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry with an emphasis in criminalistics from the Metropolitan State College of Denver. At that time, I became employed with the Southeast Missouri Regional Crime Laboratory in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. During my employment there, I was accepted to the ATF's National Firearms Examiner Academy, and that is a year-long program where I received the majority of my training before being released to work cases.
As a forensic firearm examiner, is there a process that you follow for creating test fires from a weapon in question potentially involved in a crime?
Yes.
Can you explain that process to us, please?
The process begins with an examination of the firearm itself. I want to make sure what condition the firearm is in when I receive it. And so we have a worksheet that we use to fill out all the pertinent information that needs to be recorded about the firearm. Once this has been completed, then I can move into the test firing phase. Depending on the case, kind of depends on what type of ammunition is selected. Sometimes we can use generic ammunition from our ammunition collection. Other times it's more appropriate to use ammunition similar or exactly the same as the ammunition used in the crime. At this point, once the ammunition has been selected, test fires are created by shooting the firearm into our water tank that we have at the laboratory. This allows us to collect fired cartridge casings as well as projectiles in a relatively pristine condition, suitable for further examination down the line.
Once you collect those test fires, what do you do with them?
Depending on the case, sometimes they'll be used for comparison work underneath a microscope. Other times they are just collected and tagged into evidence in case they are needed for further work down the line.
In the event that you only collect them but don't do a comparison and ultimately check them into evidence, how do you ensure chain of custody of those test fires?
The test fires are packaged. The package is labeled with the pertinent information by me. The package is then sealed and then initialed and dated by me, and then it is entered into the laboratory's computer system, the evidence tracking system that we use, and I drop it into locked lockers within our evidence unit, and at that point it's out of my hands. It becomes the realm of our evidence unit.
How do we know that a bullet that we see in court from, for example, a test fire, is a bullet fired from a certain rifle?
By looking at the evidence itself or the packaging itself, based on our lab SOPs, there should be initials and dates by each individual who opened it and then subsequently sealed it back up before being tagged back into evidence, as well as you can contact the evidence unit and they are able to print out an item history report that lists everything that's been done with that piece of evidence from the time it was entered into evidence. It tracks it moving from different parts of our evidence warehouse to another part. It tracks the evidence being checked out by a scientist and being checked back in. Those are some of the ways to keep track of it.
And as far as the printed out item report, is that something that the Albuquerque Police Department Evidence Unit does as a standard part of its business practices?
Yes, not necessarily the printing out, but each piece of evidence within the warehouse has an item history that is able to be printed if needed.
And is that information stored on a computer?
Yes,
And if you needed to get that information out of the computer, can you request a printout?
you can.
Were you asked to conduct test fires in this case?
Yes.
Tell me about the process you used to conduct those test fires in this case.
Again, it's similar to what I explained before. The first step was an examination of the firearms related to this case.
Well, let me back you up there. How did you get those firearms?
They were transferred over to me by Detective Nate Render.
I'm going to show you what's been, when you receive a firearm and you're going to do a test fire, do you first ensure that that firearm has been tagged and recorded into evidence with some sort of identifying number?
Again, it depends on the type of case. The majority of cases, yes, the firearms are tagged into evidence. When we talk about officer-involved shootings, our SOP is slightly different because we attempt to get these firearms back to the officers by the time they go back on duty. And so in this case, the firearms are transferred directly from the primary detective to us. We conduct the preliminary analysis, which is a function check of the firearm, collecting the test fires, and then the firearms are either transferred directly back to the officer or back to the primary criminalistics detective.
And when you received the firearms in this case, had they already been designated with identifying numbers?
They had been designated with identifying numbers, yes, but not tagged into evidence.
What did you do with those two firearms? What kinds of firearms were they?
Both of them were semi-automatic rifles. One is the manufacturer is Noveski. The second one, the manufacturer is JP Enterprises.
I'm showing you it's already been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 61. It's a little washed out, so let me get this. No, that's not bright enough. This has been entered into evidence as a picture of firearm 1 in this matter, and I'm pointing to the indicator on the picture. Is that the rifle that you received that you treated as firearm 1 in your test fires in this case?
I believe so, yes.
I'm showing you what's been previously entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 62, pointing down at the posted note on there with F2 designation. Is that the firearm that you received and treated as firearm 2 in this case?
I believe so, yes.
So how did you collect the test fires in this case?
Like I was saying, the first part is an examination of the firearm itself. So we make note of any trace evidence that might be on the firearm, biological material, dirt, mud, anything that might be adhering to the outside of it. We make note of make, model, caliber, serial number, trigger pull, how long it is, how long the barrel is, what type of rifling it has inside, a bunch of different features of the firearm, as well as anything that might be attached to it. And then at this point, we do the test firing into the water tank and collect the test fired bullets and cartridge casings.
Is that what you did in this case?
It is.
How many test fires did you do in this case?
3 for each gun.
At some point in doing your test fires, did you use 2 different kinds of ammunition?
Possibly, yes.
Okay, would it help help refresh your recollection by seeing
Yes,
what we understand to be the test fires in this case, Your Honor? I'm showing you what hasn't.
Thank you.
I'd like you to take a look at these two objects here, and when you remember how many total test fires you did for each rifle, go ahead and let me know that you remember, and then we'll talk about that.
I remember now.
Okay, how many test fires did you do for each rifle?
6 for each rifle.
Why did you do that?
The 3 of the test fires that I used were the same type of ammunition submitted with the 2 rifles, so Speer gold dot ammunition. When those are fired into a water tank, they have a tendency to fragment into a bunch of small pieces. So in order to make sure that I had intact bullets to compare to any evidence, I also fired Barnes triple shock, which are solid copper projectiles, and they do not fragment within the water.
Is there a magic number of test fires that an analyst needs to do in order to make a comparison?
No.
How many test fires does a qualified analyst need to review or rely on to come to an opinion?
At least 2, and that's in order to be able to establish reproducibility within the firearm. So make sure that the firearm makes the same markings on the bullet over and over.
If an analyst is able to come to the conclusion that the rifle barrel is making the correct markings on the bullets with just 2, is there any problem with only relying on those 2 and coming to an opinion?
No.
How did you mark the 6 test fires and shell casings that you collected in this case?
I do not remember exactly what designation I gave them.
Okay. Well, do you know that you did you designate them?
Possibly.
Okay. When you put them into the bags, did they have a label on them?
They did have a label, yes.
And does that label distinguish which firearm they came from and what their evidence number is?
Yes.
And once you put them in the bags and sealed them with those labels, what did you do with them?
I enter the pertinent information into the evidence tracking system, and then the bags themselves get put into locked lockers within the evidence triage area at the laboratory.
Okay. I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 54. What is 54?
54 is labeled as test fires and barrel patch from F1.
Who created those test fires?
I did.
Who tagged them into evidence?
I did.
Are in the same or substantially same condition, other than the fact that they've been opened and resealed? Since you
Yes.
saw them last? Move the admission of 54, Your Honor.
Any objection?
I don't have any objection, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. 54 will be admitted without objection.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 55. What is 55?
Description is test fires and barrel patch from F2.
And did you create those test fires?
I did.
Did you check them into evidence?
I did.
And other than the fact that it's been opened and resealed, is in the same or substantially same condition as when you saw it last?
Yes.
At some point in this case, were you asked to do a comparison of a bullet recovered from autopsy?
I was.
All right. I'm handing you what had been previously entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 53 and 53A, I believe. First, what is 53?
53 is a manila envelope with a APD evidence sticker affixed to one side.
Have you ever seen that envelope before?
I have.
Did at some point you open up that envelope?
I did.
And now I'm handing you what's been previously admitted as 53A. What is 53A?
53A is another manila envelope with an evidence sticker from the Office of the Medical Investigator.
At some point, did you open up 53A?
I did.
And when you opened 53A, what did you find inside?
A single projectile.
What kind of projectile?
It is a spear gold dot projectile.
From what kind of firearm?
A firearm that fires .223 Remington or 5.56 by 45 millimeter ammunition.
Was that consistent with the kind of ammunition you received in your test fires for this case?
It is.
And is that caliber and type of firearm consistent with the firearms that you test fired that ammunition from?
It is.
At some point, when you did the comparison of the autopsy bullet, did you compare your test fires to each other to ensure a match?
I did.
And did you find agreement among the test fires?
Yes.
At some point after finding agreement, did you compare the test fires to the autopsy bullet in this case?
I did.
And were you able to make a match with that bullet?
I was not.
As a witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examine.
If I may, Your Honor, I neglected, I think I might have discussed it, but I didn't move two exhibits. Just briefly, he testified about the chain of custody reports, and I'd like to just briefly ask the witness so we can move those into evidence.
Go ahead.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as states 54A. What is that?
It appears to be a item history report for the test fires and barrel patch from F1.
And you were previously describing how the evidence is maintained in the computer system and on demand a report from that can be printed out. Is that one of those kinds of reports?
It is.
And are those maintained in the ordinary practice of the APD Evidence Division?
It is.
Is the information on that report made at or around the time of the events that it reports on?
Yes.
Move 54A, Your Honor.
Any objection to 54A?
No.
No objection, Your Honor. 54A will be admitted without objection.
I'm handing you what's been previously marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 55A. What is 55A?
It is a item history report for test fires and barrel patch from F2.
And is that also the same kind of printout that you just described?
Yes.
And is it created and maintained and printed out in the same manner?
Yes, it is.
Move 55A, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor. 55A will be admitted.
Now I pass it once. Witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stewart.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Stewart, you mentioned that you were unable to make a match in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And why were you unable to make a match?
In my opinion, there were insufficient individual characteristics on the projectile to allow me to identify it to either of the firearms. In addition, there were not significant enough differences for me to exclude it from either one of the firearms.
Okay. Moment to confer, Your Honor?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
I don't believe so, Your Honor. Thank you. This witness may be excused.
May he be excused from the case, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the State next calls Deborah DeRosier.
raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated.
Mr. Rossier, we called you here because you're a technician who took 3D images of ballistics evidence in this case. So can you please introduce yourself and spell your name for us all, please?
My name is Deborah DeRosier. My last name is spelled D-E-S-R-O-S-I-E-R-S.
And just so we're clear, what about your first name?
Deborah, D-E-B-B-R-A.
So 2 B's?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can just ask both of them to speak up a little bit louder. I have a hard time hearing.
If you could speak up just a little bit, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Maybe lean a little closer to the mic, that'll help. What do you do for a living?
I'm a data entry specialist for forensic technology.
And where is Forensic Technologies that you work
It's
for?
located in Montreal, Canada.
How long have you been doing work involving ballistic analysis?
Ballistic imaging since 1994.
Tell us about that.
I started in 1994 working on bulletproof laboratory services.
Okay.
I retired 2001, moved to Canada, and began contract working in 2009 for Forensic Technology building databases.
What kind of databases do you build?
Bullets and cartridge cases,
For what purpose?
research and development for the scientists in my group.
What kind of company is it that you work for?
Forensic Technology is a company that develops and designs software in usage with powerful microscopes to make forensic tools for firearms examiners.
And where do you fit in that process?
I build databases for the scientists.
And what do you mean by that?
If they come up with an idea to enhance their product, they will ask me to make them a database pertaining to maybe 200 pairs of 9mm bullets. And I will pull 200 pairs of 9mm bullets and acquire them into the system.
And when you say acquire them into the system, what do you mean by that?
Taking pictures,
What kind of machine do you use to take pictures for that?
a bullet track system.
What kind of camera does that use?
I believe it's a confocal camera with use of a microscope.
Can you just explain to us briefly what it is you do when you operate that camera with the confocal microscope?
I place a bullet on a bullet stub, place that on a bullet holder, place that underneath the camera's eye of the confocal microscope, and proceed with the acquisition.
And when the acquisition happens, what kind of images does it generate?
Oh, it generates black and white images,
Okay.
a mosaic, if you will, of the entire surface of the base of the bullet.
What kind of quality are we talking about?
Oh, very powerful, high quality.
Do you necessarily know the intricacies of how that camera works?
No, sir.
Do you know how to operate it properly?
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to talk to you next about what you did for this case.
Okay.
Have you ever met a man named Detective Jeff Stone?
Yes.
Whenabouts did you meet him?
I believe it was June 10th of 2015.
What did Jeff Stone need you to do?
To take microscopic images of the bullets.
And without telling us what you did you end up doing that?
Yes, I did, sir.
Okay, I'd like you to describe for us all the process, not just how you took the pictures, but how Detective Stone gave you the bullets and things to that effect. So first, what did Detective Stone have with him when he came to your lab?
4 envelopes, or baggies, if you will, of evidence.
4 baggies?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And were you able to see what was in those 4 baggies?
3 of them only. 1 was in a manila type envelope.
So the three were clear baggies?
Yes, you could see into them.
I'm holding up what have been previously admitted as States Exhibit 54 and States Exhibit 55. Are these the kind of baggies that you saw?
Yes.
Going with?
Yes.
Now I'm holding up States Exhibit 53 and 53B. Is this essentially the kind of manila envelope you saw?
I did, but there's a small one that's not there.
I have a large one in
Yes.
my right hand and a small one in my left hand. Is that?
Yes, but one, I remember seeing both of those envelopes, but there's a small baggie that had a small fragment that was see-through in it.
Okay, so there's a clear small fragment as well.
What, yes.
Okay. I'm showing you what's been previously admitted as States Exhibit 53.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. And then as far as these manila envelopes, just so we're clear, I don't know if we got the full response, 53 and 53A, are these?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about the process that Detective Stone used when he took bullets out of these bags that we just saw.
He only opened one bag at a time.
And what did he do after he'd opened a bag?
Once the acquisitions were finished,
Let me back you up.
okay,
He opened a bag,
yes,
and then once that bag is open, what does he do next?
he handed me one bullet to acquire into the system.
Does he pull out only one at a time?
Yes,
Okay. When he was pulling bullets out of the bag, did he seem to know which bullets he was looking for?
yes,
And did he appear to know which envelope contained which specific set of bullets he was looking for?
I don't understand.
Well, let me ask you this. When he had the envelopes, how many did he keep open at a time?
Only one.
And what did he do with the other envelopes?
He had them aside.
Once he pulled the bullet out of the envelope, did he hand it to you?
Yes,
And what would he tell you as he handed it to you?
that this bullet was a certain number.
And what did you see on that bullet when he would hand it to you?
The first one he handed to me, it had engraved number 3 on the bottom, and he told me it was number 3.
So once he handed you the bullet that was engraved with number 3, that he told you was bullet number 3, what did you do with it?
I mounted it on a bullet stub with sticky wax, put it on the bullet holder, ensured that it was centered on the bullet stub itself, and then placed it onto the machine to be acquired.
And when you're acquiring these bullets, is there some input you have to put into the computer?
Yes, you have to create a case, and within that case, you have to create an exhibit.
Okay, so describe that process briefly for us.
It's a software that you click on a button to add a new case into the system. You would enter the case ID number, other particulars, the date of the case and/or crime. Once that was done, you click OK, and then you would click on the button to enter an exhibit into that case. And since the bullet was number 3, I entered exhibit number 3 into it and then added the particulars, which would be the caliber, the land engraved areas, the direction of twist, whether it was cut, button, Glock, smoothbore, and any other particulars.
Okay. Are there different areas of the screen where you can input different kinds of information?
Yes, there are comment fields that you
What-
could put comments into.
What kinds of comments can you put in the comment field?
You can put anything, basically, the officer who's there, like I put in Detective Stone's name, where it came from, anything, the exhibit number, things that relate to the case itself.
Okay. After you've input that information and the computer has acquired the picture, what do you do with that bullet?
I take it off the bullet stub and I gave it to Detective Stone.
And what does he do with it?
He put it in the envelope.
And then what did he do next?
He handed me the next bullet to acquire into the system.
And when he did that, did he tell you what bullet it was?
Yes.
And what bullet was it?
It was bullet number 4,
How do you know?
because he told me, and it was engraved on the bottom of the bullet.
Okay, and so then did you input that data into the computer system?
Yes, I did.
Lady.
What did you do with that information that he told you about what bullet it was?
I entered it into the system. I created a new case, which was case number 2. Then I added an exhibit to that case number, and I put exhibit number 4 on it with all the particulars, the caliber, the twist, the leads.
After that was all done and the computer acquired the picture, what did you do with that bullet?
I gave the bullet directly back to Detective Stone.
What did he do with it?
He put it in the bag, to which he sealed it with evidence tape.
Then what did he do?
He set it aside and brought out the next bag to be acquired.
Okay. Can you tell us about what he did with that next bullet to be acquired?
It was not identified. I asked him to identify it with a marker, so because each exhibit needs to have its own identification, its own ID. So he marked it number 1 for me.
Okay. When he handed it to you, did he tell you what it was?
Bullet number 1,
And how do you know?
because he marked it on the bottom of the bullet for me.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
What did you do with that? What did you do with that information?
I put it in the system under case number 3. I had to make a new case, case number 3, and then I entered an exhibit under that case and called it exhibit number 1.
After you were finished acquiring exhibit number 1, what did you do with that bullet?
I handed it back to Detective Stone, and he put it in the envelope.
Then what did he do?
He brought out the next bullet, and he had to label that for me as exhibit 2.
Okay. What did he do with exhibit 2?
Exhibit 2, he handed it to me, and I mounted it on the bullet stub.
What did he tell you when he handed it to you?
It was exhibit 2, sir,
And how do you know?
because it was written on the bottom of the bullet.
Once you entered that information into the case and the bullet was acquired by the system and the image was created, the picture was taken, what did you do with it?
I handed it back to Detective Stone, and he placed it back in the evidence bag and sealed it with evidence tape.
Okay, then what did he do? Well, so in our chain of events, we've gone through 4 test fire bullets.
Right.
Is there a 5th bullet you were asked to test?
Yes, and that was put in after. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that.
It was a manila envelope. He opened it up. I remember there being item number 024 on the bag, and that evidence bullet was entered as item 24.
Okay. And so when he pulled out that item that you've identified as 24, did he pull it out of this envelope 53A?
Yes,
And what did you do with that bullet that he gave you from 53A?
I mounted it on a bullet stub with sticky wax, put it on the bullet holder, and then placed it on the machine to be acquired.
And did that happen?
Yes.
So once you create a case file and create the picture, take the picture of these individual bullets, are you able to later go back and edit information on the case file?
Yes, you can.
What kinds of information can you edit?
Typographical errors. You can add more information onto the comment section. You can, if you make a typo in the case or the exhibit, you can correct that at that time.
Did you ever edit any of the information for these pictures?
For the pictures,
Well, I mean the cases for these pictures.
I edited typos, yes.
What kinds of typos?
I remember Jeff Stone, his name, he spells it Geoff, and I had put it Jeff, so I corrected that. I know that I had typos in the word detective, and I still believe there is a typo I didn't correct. It was in one of the reports that I had handed him.
Did you ever edit any of the exhibit numbers for the
No,
case
I
pictures?
did not.
After you take the pictures, where do they get uploaded?
They get uploaded into a data concentrator.
Did you ever discover any anomalies related to timestamps for your reports?
Only after speaking with Attorney Bregman.
And what did you learn thanks to Attorney Bregman?
that the data concentrator timestamp was approximately over 4 hours ahead of when I had originally acquired them into the system.
Was the computer that you were using to operate the camera accurate in time?
Yes, it was.
Was the computer where the images were stored accurate in time?
No, it was not.
And when these reports are generated, do they come from the computer where you took the pictures or the computer where the pictures are stored?
I believe the computer where the pictures are stored. Well, actually, sir, I can't answer that. I don't know correctly that particular one.
Okay. Well, we know that your reports had incorrect times.
Yes.
Okay. Were the reports with incorrect times generated from your computer that had the correct time or a different computer?
Objection, compound and leading.
Sustained. Again, I'm having problems here, Mr. Bregman. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I don't have a microphone here.
I know.
But I'm sorry. I will stand up. I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that, please?
Where was the timestamp problem in the system?
The timestamp problem was in the data concentrator, I was told.
Objection to the extent it's based on hearsay, Your Honor.
Response.
Well,
Are you offering it for anything other than the truth of the matter asserted?
I suppose other than for its effect on the listener for her to know that her computer where these images were taken was an accurate time and it was consistent with the times that Jeff Stone were there, Your Honor.
Well, let's sustain the objection and ask it to move on, okay?
Regarding the input of the case, the exhibit numbers into the case file, how careful were you in making sure that you put in the right exhibit number?
I was very careful
How would you know which bullet was which exhibit?
because it was written on the base of the bullet itself.
If you had been incorrect on which exhibit number went with which bullet picture, are these images high enough quality that a qualified ballistic specialist could figure that out later down the road?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
And who did you create these, which qualified ballistics examiner did you create these pictures for?
Mr. Rocky Edwards.
Pass a witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examine.
I have no questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you. May this witness be excused from the case?
Yes, Your Honor.
She may, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, with the unexpected lack of cross-examination, we're going to need a moment to set up for the final witness that we're calling today. So may we have just a few-minute recess and get the
How long
computer
will
set?
that take?
Oh, our 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes, Your Honor. Our video guy looks like he stepped up, and I think I can get it done myself. And I also need to make sure that the witness is prepared, Your Honor.
Well, we'll go ahead and recess for 10 minutes. Could I see the attorneys in the jury room for just a second?
Yes, Your Honor.